There once existed a place so extraordinary that scholars from across the world, China, Korea, Tibet, even Persia, traveled thousands of miles for many years, risking their lives just to study there. A university so vast that when it was burned down, the flames lasted for months. This was Nalanda University, a center of knowledge unlike anything this world had ever seen. It thrived for over 800 years, shaping the intellectual history of Asia, influencing thought from India to China, from Middle East to Indonesia. And yet today, most people have never heard of it. Before I tell you that story, let me share something personal. When I was a kid growing up in a small town in India, I read about Nalanda in my history books, just a few lines, words on a page. But something about it gripped me. I kept going back, rereading, imagining what it must have been like. And then the dream started. In this dream, I'd find myself in an enormous library in a study hall, sunlight seeping through the tall windows, ancient manuscripts all around me. It's weird because I can even smell that dream. I can even feel the cold of the morning air and my own sleepiness. This is one of the most influential dreams of my life. I often think about how it would be to walk in this ancient university's vast courtyards, the great sandstone buildings rising around me. How it is to sit in a hall filled with scholars debating ideas that stretched the mind, theories that shaped the world. In the distance, Buddhist monks chanting in low voices. Nalanda was a civilization of knowledge, a place where the brightest minds of the ancient world gathered, where ideas flowed freely across cultures, where learning was an act of devotion. It was the beating heart of what historians call the Golden Age of India, a time when art, science, philosophy, and literature flourished under rulers who believed in nurturing the mind. India in the 5th and 6th century CE was a place of enormous intellectual curiosity. The Gupta Empire, often referred to as the cradle of India's cultural and scientific achievements, fostered an environment where knowledge was sacred, where scholars were held in the highest regard. Under rulers like Kumaragupta I, who founded Nalanda in 427 CE, the empire became a place where mathematics, astronomy, literature, and medicine advanced at an extraordinary pace. This was the era of Aryabhata, the mathematician who first proposed the concept of zero as a numeral, laid the foundations for trigonometry, and even speculated that the earth rotates on its axis. This was a time when Sanskrit literature flourished and poets like Kalidasa crafted epics that would inspire generations. From Rome to Southeast Asia, Indian philosophy, science, and medicine found their way into different cultures, shaping thought far beyond the subcontinent. This was an age where debate was encouraged, where scholars from different traditions, Buddhists, Hindus, Jains, challenged each other in pursuit of deeper truth. And at the center of it all was Nalanda University. Nalanda was the world's first residential university with sprawling dormitories that could house over 10,000 students and 1,500 teachers. These weren't just the students from India. Scholars traveled from as far as China, Korea, Tibet, Persia, and Indonesia, making their way across mountains and seas to be part of something greater than themselves. Getting into Nalanda wasn't easy. The university was known for its rigorous entrance exams. Potential students had to engage in philosophical debates with the teachers, proving their knowledge before being admitted. And once inside, the curriculum was vast. Nalanda wasn't limited to Buddhist studies, though that was its foundation. It covered logic, medicine, astronomy, mathematics, grammar, Sanskrit, and even alchemy. It had one of the most advanced educational systems of its time, with structured lectures, discussions, and hands-on practice. The university's library, Dharmaganja, was legendary. It had 3 massive buildings: Ratnasagara, Ocean of Jewels; Ratnodadi, Sea of Jewels; and Ratnaranjaka, Jewel Adorned, filled with manuscripts that covered centuries of knowledge. It was said that scholars would spend entire lifetimes within its walls, copying, debating, and expanding upon the wisdom of those before them. Among those who studied here was Huanzhang, the Chinese Buddhist monk who came in the 7th century. He spent years at Nalanda, studying under the revered scholar Shilabhadra, before carrying hundreds of Sanskrit manuscripts back to China, where they would later shape East Asian Buddhism. Nagarjuna, the founder of Madhyamaka philosophy, once walked these halls. Aryadeva, Dharmakirti, Vasubandhu, some of the greatest thinkers in Buddhist and Indian philosophy, all called Nalanda home. Nalanda is an Indian institution but acted as a global center of learning where cultures intertwined. But knowledge is fragile. Civilizations rise, but they also fall. In the 12th century, the world around Nalanda was changing. The once mighty kingdoms of India had begun to fracture, their power weakening under both internal strife and foreign invasions. It was during this time that Bakhtiyar Khilji, a Turco-Afghan military general, arrived in the region. Historical accounts say that when Khilji's men stormed Nalanda, they burned an entire civilization of thought. The great library, Dharmakanja, was burned down. It's said that the fire raged for months, fueled by the sheer number of manuscripts it contained. It was an attack on ideas, on philosophy, and knowledge itself. The loss of Nalanda was one of the greatest intellectual tragedies in human history. Nalanda never truly recovered. For centuries it lay forgotten, its ruins buried under dust and time. It wasn't until the 19th century, when surveyors stumbled upon its remains, that the world remembered what had once stood there. Today, Nalanda is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And in 2010, the Indian government revived the university, hoping to rekindle the spirit of ancient learning. No matter how many buildings we reconstruct, we can never fully bring back what was lost. Throughout history, books have been burned, universities have been razed, civilizations have risen and fallen, and ideas have been silenced. But all things, no matter how grand, are impermanent. The great university that once stood tall is now dust, just as one day everything we build today will fade. In Buddhism, impermanence, anicca, teaches us that nothing is fixed, not even wisdom itself. Knowledge is not immune to time, it shifts, dissolves, and re-emerges in different forms. What was once the pinnacle of human learning eventually crumbled, its manuscripts turned to ash, its scholars forgotten. But impermanence is not just destruction, it's also renewal. Centuries later, Nalanda has risen again, rebuilt not as a perfect restoration of the past, but as something new, shaped by a different time, a different world. It will one day fade too, as all things do. And yet, for now, it stands, proof that even in decay, there is always the possibility of rebirth. So the next time someone tells you that the world's greatest universities are only in Europe or America, tell them about the story of Nalanda. And if you like this video, you'll love this film I made about what happened when a Western scientist, Albert Einstein, met an Indian philosopher, Rabindranath Tagore. Click here to watch the video.